Yo, GM. How's everybody doing this fine Friday afternoon? Everybody in the chat, let me know if you can hear me, if the volume is good, if I need to make any adjustments. Seen a bunch of GMs. Apologies for the late start today, guys, but here we are. Had a little bit of IRL stuff to deal with in the last minute there. But we are live. I'm excited to do this stream today. Who do we have here? I see Louie 89. Possibly a new face. I don't recognize your handle at all. Thank you so much for showing up. Wop wop, he says. Somber Dragon says GN. Must be nighttime where you are. Apologies for the later stream, but here we go. Danny P says, let's go. Happy to have you here. Another GN. Must be catching some people in the later end of the spectrum today. We've got Kimberly showing up again. Thank you so much. I think, what is that? 3 streams in a row we've had you show up. We do appreciate you popping in and hanging out with us. Good to see you. Prince, GM. Becoming more of a regular in the AFM TG group. Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody's saying, Kimberly's saying, doing well. Danny P says, we got you. Okay, so I imagine that means everything is coming in loud and clear. Okay, well, let's do some of the usual beginning stuff. Welcome to another episode of The Daily Edge presents Astrology for Men. I am 0xRapture, and I will chart any shitcoin with a pulse, provided it has a little bit of chart history and structure that I can work with. We can make a plan and a strategy. Reminder that we are brought to you by thedailyedge.com. If you're not already, go to thedailyedge.com/subscribe. We are a daily newsletter full of actionable insights, intel, and knowledge from the market from the previous day, distilled into a quick 5-minute read backed by data and written by the one and only on-chain wizard. So don't forget to go and subscribe to the newsletter. It's a great companion to the ChainEDGE website and the workflow. It gives you a lot of really great information to get you up to speed if you're not able to spend 24/7 on chain like a lot of us are. And also don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you're enjoying what we're doing here. The only way we grow is with the support of the community. And we do want to grow this channel. We do want to grow the community. We want to get this information out to as many people as possible and to make it worthwhile. So please do like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, all the links are available in the description below. So I thought today we'd do a little bit of a different type of stream. Normally we do the chart requests, which isn't going anywhere. We're just temporarily switching the show for today. What I thought I would do is, because of the ChainEDGE Portfolio Alerts. So ChainEDGE is the on-chain analytics platform that is the sister company to the Daily Edge. We recently rolled out a new feature called Portfolio Alerts, which are alerts that go off when a token, a sub 5-day, so a 0 to 5-day token, reaches a threshold of $100,000 balance held by smart money, not by one wallet, but across wallets. It's a threshold that we've set. And once it hits that, it shows a level of conviction. Now, these alerts have been flying in quite frequently as of late, given the more bullish market conditions. And I know that there's been some confusion around how to play them and the best way to use these alerts and whether it's signal or potentially noise. Oh, excuse me about that. We just had another 4-hour close, which we will take a look at the majors in a minute, and BTC sure has been chatting. But the direction of today's show is to look more at these portfolio alerts. So what I've done is I've put together a watch list. And actually, if you go on the AFM TG group, there's a link to the watch list so you can follow along and see all the tokens that we're going to potentially get to. There's 32 on here. It's a lot, so we're probably not going to get through all of them, but we'll go through a bunch just from the last couple of days of alerts to see what has taken place and what sort of strategy could be used after receiving these alerts, and the other data points that could be helpful in making decisions, because they're not designed as a blind ape signal. It's still just to point you in the direction of tokens to look at that should give you more to cut through some of the noise, because especially for Solana, there's thousands of tokens that launch daily, and it's like, where do you put your capital? And so often with a lot of these coins, you're just buying tops and you're ending up as exit liquidity. So the purpose behind the portfolio alerts is to show a level of conviction in these tokens. Now, there might need to be a little bit of tweaking under the hood, given how rapidly they're coming in under these more bullish market conditions. But that's something that we're looking into. But what we thought was today, I'm just going to go through some of those alerts and see what we can come up with, and see what sort of strategies have been working well, and different data points that you could look at to tell you whether or not it was worth your attention and capital. So with that said, let's just do a quick look at the majors, as we like to do. We're not going to spend very much time on it at all today, but we'll do a quick look just to see what's been going on. And as you can see, I mean, Bitcoin is going for it. It's attempting to break free of this, since March, so 6 month or so channel. It's attempting to break free of this channel. Would certainly be welcomed to break out of this large range we've been trading in, but also this channel to get, break this. And the hope is that we just continue the next leg of the bull market. So BTC is looking beautiful up here. We are into some supply, months-long supply that has acted as supply on 1, 2, 3-ish occasions. So we are cognizant of that, but looking overall quite nice. And if you're wondering what some of these other boxes are, sorry, so it's just different monthly and weekly levels that we've got here. Let's see. That's a weekly area, and it tagged it a while back. Like, these are just high time frame, and then the lower down you go, it's more detailed that I've added in. But overall, I mean, the market's feeling great. Things are looking bullish. ETH is still lagging. Solana's sort of lagging with it as well at this moment in time. We can see the Sol ETH chart over here is sort of stagnated at the all-time high area, and it's in this bullish range. So I mean, it's looking fine. And on Solana, these two supply and demand areas that I've had drawn here for months now continue to be very important. So eventually, when it breaks one way or the other way, potentially and hopefully to the upside, since we're in a bull market, it should be a pretty violent move, because it's been in this tight channel for so long. And I mean, ETH is in this channel here too. So that's where the majors stand, but we're not going to spend too much time on that. Let's remove this and get on with the show. Hermit, GM buddy, good to have you here, Mr. Genghis. Always a pleasure. Let me remove some of these other things, the banners, and then we can get to it. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up today's watch list. And we can just start to take a look. So these are all tokens that have come in on the ChainEDGE Portfolio Summary Alerts, both ETH and Solana, a lot more on Solana. And these are mostly just from the last 2 to 3 days. Some are a little bit older that are still on here, and some have completely died. As you can see, like this one has no activity, no liquidity, no volume. But just to get a sense of what's been going on and how to look at these alerts. Because when we initially planned them out, the whole thought behind them was, maybe you get 2, 3, maybe 5 of these alerts a week. But what's been happening lately is there's been like 5 of them a day, which is pretty intense. And they've been acting more as early alerts and less so as these accumulation pattern of alerts. That was the original intention. And so I think we're going to have to tweak some of the parameters, like perhaps it's the balance threshold, especially if a coin is, under a certain amount of hours, like 4 hours or something like that, because a lot of it can be sniper activity, especially on ETH. And on Solana, the rotations are so fast that we really do want to be catching the trend of accumulation and not just explosive pump and then a dump. But something that we're looking at and something that we'll get to. But as you guys can see, the list is pretty extensive. I gotta say, I'm loving the new filtering features that Deck Screener's added in. You can rearrange your columns, you can remove columns, you can filter it by, there's a few extra filters, like if the token has a profile and whatnot. Okay, so where should I start? I think what I'll do is I'll sort by age. Yeah, I'll sort by age, and maybe we'll start with the most recent alert that's come in, so we can take a look and just see like what was the play here. And what I'm going to do is I have my Telegram here beside me. I'm just going to take a look to get a quick understanding of what time the alert came in, so we can see what was happening at the time. So this alert looks like it came in. Hold on 1 second. Let me just going to switch screen for a second because I need to adjust something real quick. And that's just the ChainEDGE homepage that you got looking at there. But I just need to realign the time so that it's on the same time that I am for the chart, so that it's not throwing me off when I'm looking at the alerts. I don't know why that got changed, but it was the wrong one. So yeah, this is the ChainEDGE homepage. This is the Solana version. And then we also have EVM over here. You can see how active Solana is. So like in our new launch, hot new launches dashboard, it's like pages of them. 5 pages of tokens that our wallets have been trading. Whereas versus on ETH, here's a quick. So like right now, I think the better use of your time and capital is on Solana rather than ETH, because the launches haven't been great and it's where all the liquidity is flowing, and it's a lot harder on ETH. Everything's moving really slowly and there's no clear narrative or at the moment, and all the tokens sort of seem phoned in from devs. But you can see the difference between how much tokens are getting activity from our smart money wallets on ETH. Like there's barely a page and a half versus on Solana. Like I said, these are all new coins that launched in the last 24 hours that have had a level of trading activity by our wallets. Obviously, the further down you go, the less buy amounts they've had. Like these only have a couple $1,000s of activity, whereas up near the top, 100K plus of buys. Let's get back to here. Okay, so this alert came in this candle here. Came in at 1:20 my time, it says. So it came in here. And if you're getting this alert, obviously this is acting as a early alert, right? Like it's not really showing you the accumulation that we'd want to see, but there is a trade to be had here. So like a lot of people are looking at these alerts right now and sort of, how do we trade these things? Because I'm getting it and I feel like if I'm buying, I'm just buying into the top. Well, you need to have a little bit of patience, and you need to, it still gives you a little bit of time to do a little bit of research. And what we found, and from one of the, there was a post going around in the ChainEDGE Discord. I can't remember the name of the, oh my goodness, I should remember, but I can't remember at the moment of the account of the username. Now they've been just tracking how the portfolio alerts have fared while using fibs. And fibs are a well-known strategy that we employ at AFM as well, usually as confluence, not usually as primary analysis. But especially on Solana coins, fibs are very important, especially the golden pocket, the 0.618 to 0.66 level, and the 786 fib. So now a coin like this, where you're getting an alert here. and you don't want to be buying the top, right? Like I would suggest never just blind aping these alerts. But using that fib strategy, using that fib strategy, pull it from the bottom of the top, I bet you, yeah, there we go. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as that, right? You're pulling the fib and you've got your golden pocket right there, because there's not much structure to work with on M5. On M1, you had some structure for sure, and we can 100% go through and take a look and mark out levels. And what I'm doing is just highlighting the previous swing levels that were important on the way up, because they often on the way down become important again. And as you can see, so what you're doing, because we don't want to just blind bid on a fib level. You want to have a reason, even though the fibs are a meme and a psychological tool that, you know, a mainstay in the meme coin traders arsenal that is being deployed. That's a tactic quite frequently. You want to have a little bit of confluence with things going on there. Well, as we can see, so say you got the alert came in somewhere in this cluster here. Now, yes, you could have just top blasted and you got a bit of a run, but it's still quite risky to do so, right? Like, say you got the alert and you immediately buy somewhere here. I mean, you got a 2x, not bad at all. But you're getting the alert, doing a quick bit of research. Like by the time that's happened, you're already up here, and then you're have a high probability of buying the top at that point, right? Yes, it's an M1 or 1 minute chart bullish stair stepping, but that's not really much to go off of. So my first approach would be to mark out levels. But if you're looking to get on board these things as quickly as possible, just throw your fib up and take a look at some key swing levels and see what aligns. And we can see how perfectly this area of demand right here from a previous important swing high became, right? And then you can say to yourself, okay, I think when it comes down to the golden pocket, which is this level here on the fibs, when it reaches there, I think because it has this important swing level, and we've got an area of demand, it's probably a good bid. And look at that. It went on to do so. It's not always going to happen this way, and sometimes it might slice right through the golden pocket and land you on the 786. And it also doesn't mean that this is going to go to new highs from here. It could still come down, retag this area, or even come into the 786. But if you have a little bit of patience, the beauty of the portfolio alerts is there should be a level of time that it affords you that you don't have to just ape immediately. Like you can get the alert, do your preliminary research, throw the chart up, take a look at some levels, say to yourself, okay, this is an area where I would like to do business in. See this level here with the golden pocket aligning with this swing high and this area of demand. This is an area where I would like to do business. And so you would just have a little bit of patience for that to occur. Now, it could have happened higher up if it went up higher, and then we might have been looking somewhere in here, but it's a level that aligns and it makes a lot of sense. And had you had that patience, yes, the first tag, you might have been underwater a little bit and you might have been sweating because you're like, oh, did I do the right move? But eventually, you know, buying that first tag gave you 150%. Now, one thing you can do, because yes, it had moved into an M1 bearish structure, which M1 is low time frame, so we're not going to base our entire analysis off of that type of structure. But another way that you could have played this was going, okay, we broke M1 bearish, so now I'm in M1 bearish ranges. What's a way that I could take this trade with a level of confirmation before doing the bid and before diving in, and it's not blind buying that level, which, yes, blind buying in a scenario like this is actually quite a good strategy, because you know that there are traders looking for that level and waiting to respond. So a tag of the golden pocket or a tag of the 786 is quite often acceptable to just blind buy that, because even if it doesn't go on to new highs, you're usually going to get some level of a reaction there. and you know where your invalidation is, right? So if it starts to move against you, you can cut. But in this particular instance, why do I say it was M1 bearish? Well, because as we can see, it started making lower lows on M1. There was your first lower low break, underside tag, lower. There was another lower low there. And then another lower there. And in that process, when you're making these lower lows and they're getting shallower, you can see the lows are getting shallower into an area of interest. Well, then you just start marking and watching your bearish range. You start watching your bearish range. This was your range here. Now I'm saying this is if you're wanting confirmation. If you're not wanting to just blind buy the tag, but having something like limit orders set on that area and just ready to go, well, you just wait for your flip from a bearish range to a bullish range. Now, yes, this is M1, and as we say, it's not the highest quality signal, but it's all we have to work with because this is a new chart. Well, there was your M1 bearish range, chopped around. You got a close above, which flipped M1 bullish, and you closed above there. So there was your lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, equal lows, higher high. So then you're looking for the higher low, which came down into here, into this area of M1 demand that was put in once you put in that reversal. And it gives you the added peace of mind that if you're not wanting to blind bid the pocket tag on that area of demand and the previous swing level, well, then it's giving you buying with trend. So then you're looking, once it makes that higher high, for the higher low. And this is really important for any token that you're doing analysis on, is you're wanting to buy as much as possible with the trend. You go high time frame, and we talk about this in every stream and every day in the AFMTG group, is that we go from high time frame looking for our high time frame bias. Now, in this case, there isn't much high time frame because it's a new token, but you're looking for your bias. And you want to trade with the trend. So we can have high time frame one trend, and then you can go counter trend. Now, like I said, this is M5, and there isn't any structure really to go off of other than this leg up. So unfortunately, M1 is what you have to go off of. But when a chart is that new, M1 is perfectly fine signal because you have to work with what you have to work with. M5 and below, M15 and below only become noisy when you have a chart with hours and hours or days and days of history, because then it's a lot of chop and noise in between. But on a brand new chart, M1 is perfectly acceptable to chart off of. I do it frequently. So there you had your higher high break, tag into demand, and sent. And look at that. The tag into demand even gave you a confluence when it retouched the golden pocket. So these are things that we look for. And had you not wanted to buy the initial tag and you wanted to wait it out for your confirmation, and you said, okay, I'm going to buy that demand retest, almost 130% just from that trade alone. And what you'd be looking for is you could say, okay, we had a swing, an important swing level here that has been important, closed above, closed back below, underside tag, and sold off of that. There was a high probability that getting up into that area was going to give you a level of resistance. So you just take your trade from there to there, and then either that was your trade, or you're super bullish on this after doing more research and you're like, okay, I'm going to hold because I think this goes higher. But these are the types of ways that you trade these things, right? Like these are fast plays. Solana is very fast moving. The hot ball of money moves in an instant. So if you get your trade and you get a 2x plus and you're happy with that, and you were confident enough to put in a level of capital that was proportionate to the fact you were trading with the trend and to the fact that it's a new token, so you're not, going all in, but getting a 2x and moving on with your day in a matter of minutes, you're laughing, right? See if there's any no questions so far. By the way, if someone or anyone or whoever wants to in the comments, just let me know, like, is this I want to continue doing the chart request shows, but I do want to start doing more of these ones based around some of our features and stuff like that and workflow. So if something like this is helpful, just let me know in the comments, guys, whenever you get a chance. But there you go. You had a trade right there. You just had to have patience. You didn't FOMO. You got your alert here. You waited. You're like, oh, you're watching this go up. You're like, fuck, this thing's going to take off without me. Well, you know what? There's always a higher low somewhere, right? Low, high, higher low. Now you're hoping that it goes higher high, but we're not guaranteed that. So you had your trade and you move on with your day, right? Yes, we're seeing tokens go like crazy lately and hitting insane valuations in a very short period of time. So you want to be leaning bullish. And if you can get the best entry possible, where your invalidation is quite clear, you want to give it room to breathe. But if you just want to take a trade and move on to the next token and go on with your life, well, there it was. With trend, clear invalidation, because if you lost this level here, you lost that structure, you're having a good time. So let's move on. What was the next one? This looks like Waifu. Okay, so here is a one that looks as though it died off. This was another alert from today. It came in at 1246. It came in here. It came in literally at the top. So this is why having patience and doing a little bit of research beforehand on these portfolio alerts as they're coming in these bullish conditions is worth the wait, because or worth the patience, because you don't want to be buying this and then all of a sudden you're down here and you're like, what the fuck happened? Why am I 70, 80, 90% underwater on this trade? I got this alert. These alerts are supposed to do blah, 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 are supposed to be bullish and give me these indicators. Well, you know what? We can't control where the wallets are placing their capital. And if the aggregate of our smart money wallets has a balance of over 100K on these tokens, it's going to trigger. But just realize that it's a hot ball of money that's moving fast and narratives change quickly. So, okay, you got the alert. You're into the highs. We're not buying the highs. This is one thing that I'm going to drill home is you get these alerts. Don't just blind ape, because we're not buying highs. We're never doing that here on AFM. We're trying to buy with trend. So yes, you were with the trend here, but you're like, okay, what am I looking for? So we can, as we always do, go as high time frame as possible to look for structure. I actually see some here on M5. Like you have an M5 demand here. We're going to mark out some of our, sorry, that's M15, some of our key swing levels. Look, we had a swing level there just to see what we had, right? Now, this sell-off was quite aggressive. But what we can do is we can then throw up the fibs and say, okay, this one gave some trades, but you had to be very fast and ready to cut, because obviously this would have not ended up well. Right on the way up, as it came back to the pocket, it had buyers step in there, but they just couldn't hold the level. And you were getting some indication that it maybe wanted to go up because you're getting all these lower wicks here, but it just kept selling through. It came down and tagged the 786, tiniest bounce, and then failed. And now we're down closer to the bottom of this demand. Doesn't mean that it can't find a bottom here and start to go up, but if you were looking for a way to play this in the moment, this is where I was talking about waiting for, even on M1, to get bullish structure, because here you go. This was once you close below here on M1, you are now in bearish structure. You kept getting lower lows, lower lows, lower lows. And why I say to wait for why it can be beneficial to wait for the trend to realign, the lower time frame counter trend to realign with the higher time frame trend, so that you're buying into strength and with momentum, is a scenario like this. Because yes, with the last one, just blind buying the golden pocket was a great strategy. Here, not as much, or not at all, really, right? Like you got a tiniest amount and then you're underwater. Even though we had a important swing level from before that pretty closely aligned with the 786. So you were looking immediately at the 786, actually, I'd say on this one, just given where those levels were. Like, yes, you had a swing low here on the pocket, but it's the swing high that we're really more interested in once we've broken structure. So let's see, did it once recapture bullish structure on M1? And now defining a range is a swing, in a bearish range is a swing high to a swing low that creates a lower low, breaking the previous swing low, which you had here when you got a close below. Then you got an underside retest, lower lows, underside retest, lower lows, underside retest, lower lows, underside retest, lower lows. So when you're going along with this and asking yourself, well, why did this not look like a break of structure to bullish? Well, because your range high was really up here. There was your swing high. There's your swing high to swing low, created a lower low. You even got another lower low here. So this was actually your M1 bearish range. And with this attempt here, you never got to close above. So you didn't realign with the trend, that's the confirmation you're looking for if you're playing these off of a confirmation, right? And here, again, you had another lower low from there to there. Another lower low. Like, you've never once recaptured the range in this entire move, which is why trading with trend is such a powerful ally if you're not prepared to blind buy the tag of certain levels. Buying with the primary trend, when the counter trend realigns with the primary trend, is one of your biggest allies. Because we can see we've never once recaptured bullish structure until potentially, because here we had another swing low. Well, where was the swing high of this? Look at that. So now we've actually gotten a higher high on M1. Now M1, it's a lot of chop. We can see how much chop is going on in here. And just given how much chop there's been up until this point, it's a tough way to make a strategy or a trade based off of. Because once you're getting down over here and you're seeing how choppy it's getting, it might make sense to switch up a time frame, especially the chart's getting a little bit more history. And then we can take a look. Okay, well, that M1 made a higher high, but on M5, that's not even the range high, right? So these are, you have to do a balanced analysis and look at many different factors before taking a trade. And this one obviously gave me more time because it kept going down and down, lower and lower. But there's your M5 range, and it's never flipped it yet. So even though within that range, the M1 did get a higher high when it closed above here, it's just still been a lot of chop. So this one's a little bit harder to judge by. And just given all this and how little reactions there's been, it probably needs more time before it decides whether it wants to go up or not. So worth watching, but this was a tough one to play, as we just outlined, that even utilizing the fibs in this instance didn't do you any good so far. And what we need to do is start looking to our primary analysis of ranges and waiting for a range to flip bullish. Because right now, you're just catching a falling knife, right? Like, is this just going to come down here and fail? You could be looking for a sweep at the low. That's another strategy that we teach and talk about a lot in AFM, is that on a counter trend, like if you want to trade counter to the primary trend, being this bearish range, well, if you get a sweep and a close above, that's a potential trigger to buy to get back to the top of the range. Now you need to be nimble, because once you get here, there's a high probability that it fails the range, because it is a bearish range that you'd want to cut. But if you close above, then you start getting back realigned with the higher time frame. So these are things you look at. Moving along. How are we doing on time? Wow, we're already 40 minutes deep. We've done 2 tokens. I'm going to have to speed this right up. XCOG, another coin that came in today. Okay. I mean, so what is that? Out of the 3 portfolio alerts we've looked at so far today, 2 have yielded trades. 1 is not. So if your hit rate is 66% or whatever that is for 2/3 off of three alerts, and you have patience and you wait for an entry, you're kind of laughing, right? I believe you are. So let's take a look. This XCOG alert came in. What time did this come in? Let's find it. 6 a.m. my time. Okay. So it came in. Again, it came in into the highs. It came in this candle here, right? Like, so this is, I understand the frustration of people saying, okay, these portfolio alerts are coming in. What am I supposed to do with them? Because it came in into the highs. And that's just when smart money had 100K dollar balance wise across them or between them of that token. We start to zoom out though, because you are getting market structure. What do we see? Well, here's your M5 demand with your range. Here's your range low, which is the swing low to the swing high. That created the higher high once it closed above this swing level. That's the market structure defining range because you had a higher low to higher high, close above the previous swing level. I mean, look at how beautifully this worked out in hindsight here. Now we'll mark out our key swing levels because there's a few. Excuse me. There's a few. There's another one down there. Okay, so you throw your primary analysis up because it has a little bit more higher time frame structure. This is M15, higher time frame structure. We can then throw our fibs up because the higher time frame you go, and once you have those built-in areas of market structure and swing highs, swing lows, and supply and demand areas, primary analysis is a lot more reliable than on an M1 where there's barely any structure to work off of. Yes, we can use it as we've shown with that M1 flip back to bullish on the first token we looked at, and it is reliable. It's just a little less, it's a little bit more noisy than when you start getting an M15. But look at what we've got here. So you throw your fibs up, you can see you have this area of M15 demand on a market structure defining range in bullish bias. You have your fib, your golden pocket that aligns pretty closely. So in here, you're looking for where you could take a trade. Now, there was a few trades along the way, and some of them failed. Even here, you can see how important fibs can be because you can see people were just like, okay, I'm just going to buy that. I'm just going to buy that. And it closed below the fib, but then it came all the way to the bottom of the range, which is your best risk reward out of any trade. If your bias is bullish and your range is clearly marked out and you know your range as well, that you can mark your range properly, you get a sweep of the range low or even a tag of the range low, your risk to reward is incredibly tight there, that it's just worth buying that. But there you go. You had patience on this. You waited. Now say you didn't want to just blind bid. What could you have done here? Well, I can see that we did have an M5 bullish break. You flip from making lower lows to you flip to having a higher high. Now it didn't come back and tag the demand, so you potentially would have been left offsides there, but you got that tag there, then you're getting a higher high. Sometimes you just got to bid. It's a tough one because had you not just bought this and you're here, you're like, oh, I'm going to wait for it to come down, and then it takes off with you and you're left without a bag and wondering how could you have gotten on board there. Well, This is just shitcoining. So it's not ever a guarantee that things are going to happen. We're just working with probabilities, right? But this tag down into here, especially you start seeing sweeps happening, really good signal to buy. There's a 250% move that has occurred, and it may go on to make new highs. We don't know yet. But again, this is just taking a look at these alerts and how you could have played them so that you're not left buying the tops and being other people's exit liquidity, or buying the tops, being underwater and moving on from it, and then looking back a few days later and being like, whoa, that thing went crazy after. So like, how could I have not fumbled that? Or what should I have done better? Well, if you're buying the top, you're always going to be more likely to buy when you're underwater. But if you're waiting for a setup to unfold and you have patience, because nothing just goes up in a straight line. Yes, parabolas happen and those are harder to get on board, but there's always a higher low somewhere. Let's take a look in the chat. You asked, what would the stop loss be? Well, it depends on the setup. Like here, the stop loss would have been a close below on M15 of this demand. Your stop loss is always, now shitcoins are tough because I don't love using manual. I don't love using limit stop losses. I like to manually watch the trade unfold and to hit market, buy or sell. But you're just watching that, and if you're getting a close below, like even if it dips below, you're still thinking, okay, this is going to be a sweep because your RR is so good here, right? Like, yes, buying up here feels safer because you're into green. But what if it comes here and then comes down and your invalidation is all the way down here, and then all of a sudden you're underwater 50%, whereas you buy here, which feels scarier, but your invalidation is so close that you stand to lose 5% and not 55, 75, 85%, wherever you're from, right? Wherever you're getting in on it. Okay, moving along. Fart coin. This is part of the AI meme coin narrative that's emerged over the last, I'd say about a week, once GOAT popped up and changed the landscape of where people are focusing their capital lately. Been plenty of opportunities in the space, and GOAT was one that we charted out on our last live stream, and it went on to a crazy run. I mean, it's one of the ones on the list, so we'll review it again just to see how that unfolded. But again, these portfolio alerts, especially when you catch one with a banger. Now, you do need to do research and find out what the narrative is. You can't just blind buy these things, and you have to find some level of conviction, and it's hard to do and to hold for those amount of times. But this is part of that narrative. So let's see what we've got. When did this fart coin alert come in? Came in at 7:15 this morning for me. Okay, so the alert came in here. And you had quite a run. So that was a tough one because you're getting the alert and then you're seeing it just take off on you, right? Like you literally got the alert here. So it's like, okay, how can you get on board that when it's moving so quickly, right? And not wanting to buy a top. And yes, I've talked about many times that we want to have patience and not just blind buy into something because it could be a top. And so how do we employ different strategies to not miss out on that move? When you're down here. Well, if it keeps making higher highs and is maintaining market structure, because this is M15, so it's a higher time frame signal that isn't just noise, and it's a little bit more reliable. Well, it's making higher highs. It's putting in areas of demand, but it's still a tough one to get on board. Like if you got the alert here, right in this candle, and then you see it make a higher high, you never actually got a tag back into the demand for that M15. We can go to M5 and see what it had there. Yeah, the alert came in here. You hadn't had your higher high yet, but look, so there is something that I do see here. And this is where being nimble comes into play. Because you finally got to close above, which built in this area of M5 demand here. You came down and tagged almost like perfectly into that M5 demand. There's not going to be a one size fits all for these, right? Like, yes, I keep telling you, don't buy the top. Don't FOMO into these. Don't buy into the top. But if you're hearing word that the narrative is super bullish and it's on trend and the momentum and volume is super crazy on it, and you don't want to see this thing take off without you, well, what are ways that you get on board? Well, the alert came in here. You got a higher high break above a key swing level. It came in and retested demand and then sent, right? And you, at that point, know where your invalidation is. It's super close. Yes, all this is in hindsight right now as we're looking at this. You can say, oh, that's hindsight. Like, how can you decide one way or another? You don't know in the moment when a top is going to be, but you're looking for indication that the chart wants to keep going up. The price wants to keep going up. But now let's say, okay, you're looking back at this and you're like, okay, some price action has occurred. You've now lost M15 structure. When you close below here, it's making lower lows. What's something that we could look for to say, okay, where is there a next trade on this? Because it is part of a bullish narrative. And look, people had tried to bid the golden pocket and it failed through. And now we've just tagged about half hour, 45 minutes ago, the 786, which aligns pretty closely with this area here of demand of a previous level. That's hourly, not much to go off of. In fact, on hourly, I see this here. So maybe it still wants to come down deeper. We don't know yet because it is still bearish M15. I know it's a lot of lines there. It can get a little confusing, but we're just trying to mark out key areas that have provided price action in the past. So what do I see now? We have this M15 bearish range. And it tagged the 786 perfectly and gave a reaction, but it hasn't done much yet. So something you could be doing in here is saying, okay, if this comes back down into that range low, gives me a sweep, sweeping the 786 again, I'm going to look to buy that with hopes to trade it back to the top of the range. And once it gets up there, we can decide whether we think it's going to keep going or not. We can cut and wait for a higher high break to retest, to bid the retest into demand, because you're not losing out. You're not giving back all your gains, but you're also waiting to trade with the trend, right, in that moment. So you preserve your gains by selling here. And if it gets a close above, you just wait to bid somewhere back in here. So you're actually buying in a similar area. But in the event that it does just fail there and goes on to make a lower low, you're not giving back all those gains. So that's something you could look for. And if it doesn't sweep down here, then you're just kind of waiting for it to make a higher high, because buying in here is risky. It can go either way. It really could. You got to do some narrative digging. Ask yourself, does this fit in to the current narrative? Are the conditions for it bullish? I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is very aligned with what's going on right now. I believe this was, I mean, you can ask Power Naps in the AFM Discord and the AFM TG, one of our admins, my buddy Power Naps, about the narrative around this, but he seems quite bullish about it. It was a coin that the Terminal of Truth or one of the AI things spat out. Like, it's a lot of information for all of these, so it gets a little confusing. And narrative game isn't my my forte. Like, I look to other people to fill in the gaps on some of this stuff. But there's a trade here if this is going to continue going up. It's just you're waiting for a few factors. It's if this, then that. If this sweeps, then buy that to go here. If this closes above here and recaptures bullish, then buy that, the demand. that gets built in for the higher low, right? If this, then that. That's what we're always doing. No, nothing is certain. You have to be nimble. Okay, well, an unfortunate chart to look at based off of an alert. Now, I had mentioned in the TG that I had heard that this token, the team was farming. So hopefully whoever was looking at this when I made mention of that in the AFM TG, they avoided because it clearly has been farmed. Yes, there were trades to be had, but overall it had been farmed. This came in at 1 a.m. yesterday. The alert, so the alert came into the high, right? Like the trouble with these is that people are bullish, buying it up, buying it up, buy it up. Well, smart money doesn't mean that they're holders. It just means that they're really good at making money, which means they bought, price drove up, and then they sold it off, right? So what we're trying to do is find the ones that have staying power after the fact, and were there factors involved that could have given you a trade because you buy into the alert. Now, this is important because the last alert went on, like the last coin that we looked at, Fartcoin, went on for quite an impressive run after the alert came in. So like, what's the difference? Well, if the alert's coming in here and you're not getting any higher highs, you're not getting, the chart isn't giving you an indication it wants to go higher, right? Like there's the Pico high of this coin so far. And you had this range that was built before you received the alert. Like you've received the alert and you can already see we have this range here. But it's been a lot of chop. Was there a play to be had on this? Was it worth your attention? Well, it came down near the bottom of the range low, the M5 range low. So there's a decent reason to take a trade there. Were you fast enough, right? Like, let's see what this came down on the fib. It came down. It hit the 786 too. Sort of chopped around a bit, but then it gave you a trade back to the top of the range. Perfectly acceptable. In fact, a great trade, right? Like why the fibs are so important on these early Solana memes, because they do work out so often, especially the 786, the pocket as well, but more so the 786 on Solana memes. But then as trading went on, you never got a new range, either bullish or bearish. You were just chopping around within this range so no clear reason or area of why you should get on board. Like, I guess you had some stair stepping here that you could have tried to trade, but eventually would have been chopped out and then underwater. But now we've eventually gone on and made a lower low and the coin's dead. So there's nothing really here. But the key thing to take away as we're doing this analysis on these and running through these is look for your structure, trade with the trend. Whether that's as low time frame as M1, if that's all it's giving you, then trade that market structure. If you're getting M5, better, M15 even better. But the fact that it had this range and it never broke above, there was no bullish continuation, just chop within a range, was maybe an indication that it didn't have too long of a staying power. And then you got the lower low. You just don't even look at this anymore. Like, could it make a higher high over here? Sure. But I don't think it's worth your time. So in fact, I'm going to remove this one from the list. Actually, let's remove that other one too. That looked dead. Was it this? Yeah, I'm going to... We'll keep it for now, but I think eventually it's going to get removed. Okay, we have our first ETH alert from the last 2 days, or the most recent ETH alert from the last 2 days. Just checking in the chat. Oh, there's Naps. What's up, Power Naps? GM, buddy. Thanks for showing up. Appreciate you being here. It says tag the 786 fast. Yeah, it did come down a lot faster than I thought it would have, but the trade is there. Now, it's just whether it's going to flip bullish or not, because if you're not already in the trade, how do you get on board? Well, you, like I said, look for that sweep, as you know, back down on the 786. Maybe you get a tag in there with a sweep of the range low, and then there's your trigger. Otherwise, it's middle, sort of mid-range, lower third, but mid-range of a bearish range is not really where you want to be doing business. Okay. Baby Nero was an ETH, the most recent ETH portfolio alert that came in at 3 a.m. today. So let's see. Where is that? Came in at 3:43. So it came in going into highs. This one, there had been a lot of activity I actually saw when going through some of the ETH stuff on the alpha stream yesterday. So potentially was one you would have already had on your radar. Oh, it's got some chart history. So we go to the highest time frame. We start to take a look at what we see. Well, we've got our H1 bullish range right here. You had your higher high break. It's holding that previous all-time high level and the higher high break and sort of hanging out around there. So this is a potentially good trade. Yes, you're a little bit late now, but you're looking for this to be the higher low somewhere in here to carry on. It didn't come all the way into demand. Like, yes, there is an area of demand here, but like the true, the tight little one down here. So maybe if you get something into here, is a really great trade. I don't know if it's going to come down that far, but maybe if you get something into here, you've got a really great setup there. I mean, it's a shitty meme, Baby Nero. Like, there's just really no direction for ETH memes at the moment, but there's something there. So it's come down and tagged the higher high break level, and it's holding it so far. I can see that it's put in a sweep here of an interim swing high and then sold off a bit from there. So maybe it comes back down and sweeps one of these levels in here. We can throw the fib up and see what's going on. Right at the golden pocket. And this is something I've talked about as well. ETH coins tend to prefer the golden pocket, whereas Solana coins tend to prefer the 786, at least for when they find their ultimate bottom and go on for a more explosive run. It's usually those levels that come into play, especially if there's a key area. So it's just building layers of confluence. And this is all that we talk about in AFM. I prefer primary analysis, where we do mark out our levels, our market structure, swing highs, swing lows, demand, etc. But when you get confluence, you throw your fibs up and you get a confluence of the golden pocket right there. Like, that was a pretty surefire trade just to buy there. Just set. You could even, for something like this, have just set a limit order and waited, and you got a trade out of that. It hasn't gone on to make a higher high yet, but there was a trade there. Given the confluence, right? Like, you're just looking for layers that tells you a lot of other market participants are going to be looking at that level as well and wanting to buy there, thinking that it's a good discount comparative to the highs, right? You could have even gone and then just fibbing the range itself, which aligned with the 786. Like, there's different ways to use fibs, and that was a little bit muddy looking. But you can also just fib the range, right? You don't have to fib bottom to top, although for new coins, that's typically how you go about these things. But you had your swing low to swing high, and it aligned with the 786, right? Like, it depends on how deep you want to go with your analysis. If you just want to be super quick and dirty with it, just throw up a fib. But if you want to be doing your primary analysis with reasoning behind why that is set up, and then putting on layers. So you did your primary, you're like, okay, I've got a couple levels here. Where might price find a bottom? Where might buyer step in? Well, then you throw up your first fib. You're like, okay, the pocket's right there and it's lining up with this. Probably a good spot. Then you can do a secondary fib and say, okay, it also aligns with the 786 just off fibbing the range. And then you're saying to yourself, well, If I'm not buying here, I'm fucking stupid because someone else is buying here. There's a very high probability that buyers were going to step in there. Sorry, I didn't mean to call anyone stupid, but have you seen this chart? Had the portfolio balance as your discovery process, seen that holdings were good. There's so much confluence happening right in that area, even before this price action takes place. Like as soon as it put in that swing high and you're making your analysis off of a range, if you start doing stuff like that, like, yes, these are extra steps, but if you're looking for, if you're still unsure in your analysis and you don't have the confidence yet that what you're doing is right, or that what you think will happen is going to happen, like you aren't sure yet, you're still new in the process, start doing things like this where you layer on confluence. This isn't forced confluence. This is the chart telling you exactly where a lot of fucking people are going to be looking at it, right? I didn't make any of this up. It's not arbitrary places I'm putting these things from, right? Like we know ranges. It's all AFM 0xRapture 101. Mark your primary range. Know your bias, high time frame. Mark your primary range. Set your demand. Mark out key levels. Then looking for confluence, still the fib up the way that we do on every chart, bottom to top. Okay, I've got confluence there. Then you can take a step back and say, okay, this is a very large H1 range. It had a large amount of displacement. Maybe let's just fib that range and see what it gives us. Oh, it's also telling me this level. You see where I'm going with this? Does that make sense to people? I hope so. I hope that makes sense to people. Because what we're doing is we're just trying to trade with the market and trade with what other people are seeing. Group chats look busy right now. It is a Friday. Hopefully we're getting another bullish Friday on our hands. Okay, moving along. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're over an hour in. And we're 5 coins in. Okay, this is taking a lot longer just because we're going through more of these things related to the alerts and whatnot. So we're definitely not going to be able to make it through all of these. But really what it is that I'm trying to do here is drive home a few things. I'm not stopping here. We still have plenty of time to go. I'm not stopping here by any means. I'm just taking a pause to say the common theme so far, and actually we've gone through, I think, 7 because I deleted 2. The common theme so far is you get your alert. Don't just blind ape it. Don't just blind bid. Wait a moment. Look at the chart. Do a little bit of research to understand if there's a narrative involved. Look for the chart telling you it wants to go up, or have patience and wait for the chart to come or price to come to an area where you would like to do business because you think a lot of other people will be waiting there to do business and you want to trade with the market. As often as we can, we don't want to be FOMO buying into a top. Yes, it can seem like it's ape top seasons. It's ape top season, like just top blast and being rewarded. But we're still seeing, even off of a move like that, that is coming back down and giving you probably a better entry. So far, that is the first takeaway, is you get your alert. It doesn't mean you have to rush at all. You have a lot of opportunity to take a moment to be calm and look at and give it a level of analysis so that you can have confidence that you're buying where you should be or where you think the best place is to be buying. Even on the one that keeps making higher highs, it gives you an opportunity in a few minutes to take a look around and say, okay, it's making higher highs. How can I get on board this? Well, this next, if it's just made a higher high, I'm looking for it to retest this area, and then I'm tight on my invalidation and ride that wave. So that's the first thing. The second thing is how to analyze these things. If it's a very fast moving chart and you don't want to spend all the time going through the intricacies of marking out every single area, that a fib is perfectly acceptable. We've seen it. We've looked at 7 coins so far. Each coin has had at least some interaction at the fibs. The ones that were down only, you didn't get a great reaction off of. And there's external factors there, like teams selling and dumping and you being farmed. But for the most part, these levels are being respected. If you're taking the moment to step back and have patience, and you go through and you mark out your primary analysis, get your primary market structure on the highest time frame available, mark that out, mark out your demand, mark out key swing levels, those key swing highs that you've been putting in on the way up, mark those out, and look for where there's a fib align with that, and just have patience. Sometimes it's never going to come there and it's going to keep going higher on you. And you have to live with that. And you have to figure out, okay, if I think this is super bullish and I need to get on board this, another way to get on board the token, which would be in that higher high, retest demand and buy. That's your strategy there. Whereas in this more patient strategy where you think you have time, because everything makes a higher low eventually, adding those layers of confluence, those levels and layers to your analysis gives you a level of confidence that a large chunk of the market is looking at that same level, which is what you want. You want people, you don't want to be the only person stepping in that area to buy. Unless you have enough capital that you can move the market and your buy signals to the whole market. Fuck, we're bullish here, let's all buy. What you want is other people to be looking at that level and buying with you, right? Like you want the market to be buying with you. You want to be buying with the market, with momentum, with the trend. So hopefully that makes sense and is a good takeaway. Okay, I see a question here from Larga Vita Heavy Metal. Hi, Rap. How do you set the demand? Is there any key step? It's a question I get often, to be honest with you, because yes, there are general rules for marking out demand and supply, but a lot of the time there's nuance to that I just have from years of experience working with these charts, that I know what I'm looking for based off of the level of price displacement and how deep I think price might come back into an area where you want to be, especially if it's something that's very high momentum and a lot of volume and new, that you're looking towards usually a higher high break level incorporated into that demand. But generally speaking, like if you wanted to break down the 3 different types of demand, or the 3 different types of supply and demand, there's order block style, which the classic definition of that is the down candle before the up move that goes on to create a higher high. When I can visualize that for you, let's find something a little bit older that has more price action so we can take a look. I'm just picking a random coin over here. No, that's not a great choice because there's not much going on there. Also not a great choice because there's not much going on there. Goat. By the way, last stream, I outlined a scenario in which I said somewhere in this area of demand on H1, I was like somewhere down over here. And that's where it ended up being the Pico bottom for that move. Which, fuck, wow. Almost a 100,000% move. Woo! Okay, so when setting demand, what is it that I look for? So let's take this GOAT chart for instance, because it's recently put in higher highs on H4. So what we do, here's your higher high break. When the range was broken more bullish, excuse me, when the range got a break of structure, bullish continuation. So it wasn't making bullish structure. It already was bullish structure, but it's bullish continuation. So you get your higher high, which I mark with orange to mark out the higher high, the swing high, higher high break. I outline breaks of structures or continuation of structure, depending on the scenario, with the orange levels, and purple is the range levels. So on GOAT, this one is tough because your swing low is here, but you have pockets of demand. And where are you looking for it to ultimately find the higher low? It's tough to say. But in the scenario like this, I would draw that. Why? Well, because I see what I like to use is clusters of price action rather than just the down candle before the up move. Because yes, you could just outline that, but there's no swing low attached to that, which I really love having a swing low involved, especially for on-chain when we're looking. Now, we can infer that this is the range high. We don't know yet because until this candle closes, we don't have that 3-candle pattern yet because it could end up here. We don't know, right? And then it's not a swing high. But for now, let's just say that that's your H4 range, swing low to swing high that made a higher high when it closed above there. So that's how I would draw demand. Now you can say, oh, that's a large area. It's just this is where you're looking for the higher low to form. So once you get in there, it's H4. So we can go down to say like M15 and say, okay, I'm looking for triggers. Now I know that we came down into here. Yes, it tagged it and it's given a reaction so far, but what would I be looking for here? Because M15 is bearish structure, which is perfectly normal. We talk about this all the time. You can have your high time frame trend being one thing, but your lower time frame being counter trend. So what you got here is here's your bearish M15 range. If you didn't want to just blind buy that, because that's also a strategy. It's just buying demand and waiting and having patience and understanding that your invalidation is a long way away, which is the unfortunate part of that. But if you're bullish on it and you don't want to miss the move, well, you could, maybe buy partial, put on a partial position there. And if it comes deeper, dollar cost average into it. Or the other strategies was wait to get either a sweep of that low to go back to the high, or a close above here and then you buy the demand in here. That needs to unfold, right? But this is one example of how I draw out demand. It's different than a lot of people would recognize. If you're more accustomed to the ICT order block style, but this is just from me adapting to on-chain and seeing what works over so many charts and looking at these things for hours and hours and hours every day, understanding what tends to happen on them, because on-chain shitters have a real funny way of making you think you're going to lose the bottom of the range before popping. So it's just what you're doing when you mark out these areas is highlighting the area where you want to be looking for the trend to put in a bottom and put in the higher low to start forming so that you can make a higher high. So you just look for different triggers and you're highlighting to yourself so that you're making a mental note, because you don't have to draw any of this shit on here. You can just look at a chart blind, naked. And if you're good enough with charts and you can see it, the levels, visualize them without drawing anything on the chart, you can do all this naked on a naked chart. But you're just saying to yourself, this is where I want to look to buy. There's nothing magical about the boxes. Even though, some people joke they're like Wrap's magic blue boxes. There's nothing magical about it. What it is just the probability. You're probability-wise looking for a higher low to form somewhere in that area. So you're giving yourself mental indication to say, okay, price is coming into this area that I outlined. I'm looking for a reason to get on board here. And then you're looking for your lower time frame triggers, whatever those may be, whether it's a sweep of a low, a low time frame flip back to realign with the high time frame trend. Like there's various things you look for. Okay. So hopefully, Larga, that answered your question. Might ask, how do you know when token is a farm? Well, you can see that the devs are just dumping it. You got to do some on-chain sleuthing. You have to go look through Soul scans or Ether scans and see what the dev wallet is doing, whether it was bundled, if they're offloading heavy amounts, if they've transferred those amounts out and are selling. It's a lot of sleuthing, and it's helpful to have people that are good at that sort of stuff to point it out for you. Because it's a lot of digging, and some people are great at it. It's not my strong suit. I look at a Soul scan and my eyes glaze over, and but other people are great at it. So it's good to have a team of people that you rely on. Another question. Yo, Rag, I'm sure you meant rap. A bit off topic, but could you show me how I can get the portfolio alerts? Because I ain't getting them, although I made an alert. Would be appreciated. If you're in either the ChainEDGE Discord or the AFMTG group, you can find someone will be able to help you, because it's really not difficult. Just got to make sure. Yeah, there's a couple things you got to check, but just if you're a ChainEDGE member, which I'm assuming you are, since you've got your alert set up, just go to the ChainEDGE Discord, and people will be more than happy to help you figure that out. And if not, then into the AFMTG, and we can help you out later. Oh, LNGP, good to see you again. GMT too, buddy. Okay, moving along. So I'm going to say this right now. I'm not going to get to all of these. I also don't think it's important to get to all of these, because more what this was about was less so about the chart requests and what to do with these alerts when they come in. And I think we're starting to see a theme and a trend about how to play them. But we'll go through a few more. Let's take a look. Fleber. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Not much to be said on this one. Let's take a look and see when the alert came in. For Fleber. Sorry, I'm just looking into my Telegram to see what time and when. Okay, so this was yesterday at 9:49 p.m. So the alert came somewhere in this candle here. So what was the move here? Or what could have been the move here? Yeah, because it would have been in this candle somewhere. And judging by that, pretty much buying the top. Zoom in the highest time frame. Even when the alert came in, you already had this setting up. Here was your H1 demand. H1 swing low. We didn't know the top was in yet. So let's just say, okay, we're getting that. You see that happen. And you're having patience. Didn't even come in and tag any demand in here. So this was a tough one. I'm sure we can go M5 and see what was happening. Bit of a tough one to trade, because you did have this. This was probably MEV, but you did have this, right? You're saying to yourself, okay, this was my M5 range. So maybe you're saying to yourself, well, it keeps making higher highs. But I just buy this range low and hope that it holds. I think it actually lost it and closed below. So it was a tough one. Yeah, you got to close below there. So my instinct would have been it's flipped bearish. But then it went on to make a higher high. This was a really tough one. Super choppy. I'm not sure what the narrative is behind it. Fleber, no idea anything about the token. Tough one. Because you never got a tag into demand. You did get an M5 into this area demand. So maybe that's what you were watching. One of those scenarios where you need to be nimble. You did get that. So maybe that's what you were watching. You were just disregarding this swing level thing. Well, it's not really overly important given it's M5. So, maybe that's what you were watching. Curious to see, did we hit any fibs on the way? Okay. So just imagine this hadn't happened yet, these candles. You got your alert here, and you're seeing it's making higher highs on M5. So you draw your fib to there because you put in a swing high, and you're saying to yourself, okay, what can I do? Well, look at that. I mean, I don't make this shit up, right? Like, you can see what's happening. So whether you had just thrown up fibs and disregarded your primary analysis, or you did your primary analysis, or you did a combination of the two, which in my mind is the most lethal of the combinations, because you're getting that confluence of factors to give yourself a level of confidence that you're going to get some sort of reaction. Well, just the fibs would have told you, okay, I got a pocket right here. So maybe I'll just buy the pocket to see what happens, which actually gave you the best trade out of this whole thing. If you didn't buy here, that gave you the best trade of this whole thing, because since then it's been down only. But do that. Draw out that M5 demand because you made a higher high. It aligned with the pocket. So you're saying to yourself, okay, there's a few factors here aligning. I think this is worth a buy. And it was. Depending on where you bought, like 260% almost. But then since it's been down only. So, if you saw this alert immediately and you were quick to act and you saw I'm making higher highs, here's my demand, here's the fib, boom. Okay, if you're quick, that's what you're doing. If you're seeing it a few hours later and you're already seeing this, and you're saying to yourself, okay, is this still worth buying? Well, once it starts making lower lows, especially on higher time frame, like M15, you made a lower low here. I guess you could have bought that and you had some trade, right? What do we say? Buy the bottom of the range. When market structure is bullish, buy the bottom of the range. It's usually worth a trade. Well, you got some trade, but then it failed. So as soon as you got the close below, you get out with a minimal amount of losses. But as soon as it did that, it's been down only. So what would you do if you're waiting? Okay, so what have we had here? Look at this. There's your swing high that created a swing low, creating a lower low when it closed below there. We've now closed above that with a higher high on M15. Here's your demand. You're buying with trend. There you go. Right? Like if you're looking at if you're looking at a chart that's died off and then 2 days later you're like, what the fuck? That thing went on like 100x from that low. Why did I not buy that? First of all, you had to have continued monitoring this chart. When it starts looking like this, are you going to continue monitoring that? Or do you put them on a watch list like we do with all these alerts and just keep monitoring them? Something that you could do, especially if you have multiple eyes, if you have a group of buddies, and you're all working towards a common goal. Well, if someone was kept monitoring the chart and sees, oh, guys, we just put in a reversal on M15. Well, then you draw out your demand, mark your range. What's the bottom of the range? Is it here? Yeah. And then you just have a little bit of patience, right? Because more often than not, patience is rewarded when you get a demand set up, when you get a bullish structure shift, demand gets set. Now I might have even drawn this to here, given that you guys know I like to incorporate the higher high break, but it's come all the way down in. And what we can see here, oh no, it closed below that. So that wouldn't have been a great trigger, but you're looking in here for the higher low. I don't know if this is going to go, but probability wise is you're saying, okay, I made a higher high. Let's make a higher low. After going through all that, maybe this reverses, right? And your risk reward is really good. You don't have to put in much down here to get an outsized return. Putting something in here, if it goes back to the highs and you're looking at a 27, it doesn't take much for a little bit of money to become a lot of money if this is where it decides to reverse from, right? Still a level of gambling, but at least you're gambling with probability on your side and in trend, with trend. It can still fail on you, and then you just cut down here. Narwhal. When did Narwhal come in? 9:09, like so many alerts yesterday. Okay, this came in at 9:09. Into this candle. In this candle here, this alert came in. It looks like I had been analyzing it yesterday because I drew that demand, which gave some setups, but then you got to close below. I can see that there's this here. It's getting rather close to that, so maybe there's a trade coming up down there. But it has broken. It did break bear, but it's also been a lot of chop. Like I'm just looking at this now. Let's delete this. All right, as soon as you got here, close below, underside retest, sold off. You made a lower low, but then you made a higher high, and you did have a trade into the demand, but then it's just continued to be chop, right? Like you have to be super nimble on these, because I do see that there was a trade here. Once you got that higher high break, came into demand and there was a trade. But then I also see, so say you took this trade and you're like, well, how do I know where to cut? This is why ranges and understanding how to market a range becomes so important. Because you could say, okay, let's just take this one step further. Let's add the fib. No real level that you're working with this. It's chopping around the 786, but nothing really to give you that indication, okay, it's the 786 is going to be the trade. We have our red down below, which also aligns with that other breakout level. So I think maybe if it comes down here, it's probably a good, really good RR. I don't know if it's going to have a bounce, but something tells me it might. But say you did that and you're like, okay, how do I not round trip that and then end up underwater? Because it looks to me, actually, it's just sweeping that bottom of the range now. You're still in this bullish structure. There's still reason for this to say it could go higher. I'm not saying it's going to, but it's swept that low. Maybe, your risk reward is super tight here. What are you risking here if you start getting below here? 10%, maybe more, depending on if it just decides to accelerate, right? But your risk is clearly defined into this demand. It's looking weak. I'm not going to lie about that. But you got your higher high break, M15 bullish range, came into demand, traded there to the top of the range and swept. Well, there was your indication to get out. Weakness at the range high. It's adding all these factors and layers on top of one another, because I've seen so many times recently, and even myself with some trades that we've been taking in AFM, is just ignoring range high signal. Saying, okay, it's made it to the top of the range, maybe it's going to flip it only to be like, oh, and then you cut here and you're like, fuck, right? You want to keep as much of those gains as possible. So when you get a signal like that, it's not great to ignore. Yes, the next candle could close above here, and then you're like, fuck. But we're seeing time and time again how important these range high sweeps are. Something to keep in mind. It's just another tool in your toolbox of different ways of using your analysis to your benefit so that you can capture and keep as much of the gains as possible and minimize and prevent the most amount of losses possible, right? Like those are our two jobs. Job number one, lose as little capital as possible. Job number two, grow that capital as much as possible. Because if you can't minimize your losses, you're never going to You're never going to outpace that with gains. And if you can't make enough gains, even if you've minimized losses, you're just going to be at break even for forever, right? So you need to think about these things. Yes, it's fucking great to say, okay, I nailed a Pico bottom, and it's a wonderful feeling. Nail a Pico bottom and then get a 100x off of that, like we saw with goat. But for every goat, there's thousands of other narwhals. I hope that makes sense. And yes, all it takes is that one make it play in crypto. All you need is that one fucking make it play, and your life can change dramatically in an instant, like overnight, in hours even. So we do want to be setting ourselves up for those as much as possible, but we also don't want to be giving back all of the gains we've worked so hard at to the market and then end up underwater and then eventually cut because we didn't take those early warning signs because we're like, oh, I'm just going to trust. Not trust. It's just, I'm going to think the words that I'm looking for are difficult to say here because it's not an arrogance of, oh, it's just going to, I know it's going to go up or whatever like that, or thinking, oh, maybe the TA is wrong or something like that. It's just looking for the signals to give you indication of what's going to happen next. I'm guilty of it too, because I've taken several trades recently where it got to a range high and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to hold it, only to be here and be like, fuck, well, I just lost 30% of that gain, so I'm going to cut it. And then often he'll come all the way back down to the bottom. So you can try and take that trade again with more capital at your disposal than you did when you first took the trade, right? Because you've captured profit. You don't want to just be constantly giving back profit. Got 15 of you guys with me live right now. Appreciate everyone that's here. Thanks so much for being here. Hopefully this one is being informative and useful as this different strategy. I'm going to go back to the chart requests for future streams, but I think maybe we'll try and do some more of these workflow related. I haven't even looked once at the attention dash throughout this process, which is something that I do. It is something that I do incorporate into my workflow, especially on sub 5-day, sub 10-day tokens, is looking at what the attention is looking like. Look at goat is still rocking hard. Sydney's up there, right? Like combining these factors with these factors, the portfolio summary, marked out up to 10-day tokens, especially if you're in the trenches on those new launches, like have both of these open and ready. You can see, why does GOAT keep going up? Well, this balance has been nothing but up and to the right. Yes, they've offloaded it along the way. GNON, one from yesterday, doing really well, right? Yes, they've offloaded along the way. But then we come back over to here. Now, these aren't always going to work out. The other day, myself and some of the lads in the AFMTG, we took a trade on GMica that royally fucked us. Turns out the team was doing some questionable things with their tokens, and we got fucked. And this is why it's good to have people that are sleuthing on the on chain as well as a rounded picture. But we had a confluence of factors of attention dashboard. GMica was on the attention dashboard, and balance held was an acceptable level, and the levels were great. We got a Pico entry off the golden pocket, which ended up failing, and then we got a Pico entry off the 786. They both went up for a little bit of time, but then both failed. So you're not always going to get a home run using these ChainEDGE tools, but more often than not, like we're seeing, GOAT has been a top balance held for a long time now. The token is 7 days old, and it's been up here since like day 2. Just the same, It's been sitting here on the attention dash near the top since like day 2. And then we come over here and we look at the GOAT chart, and it's been up only. And we even had the stream last time where I gave you the fucking entry. Oh my goodness. Sorry. It does make me happy to see these things work out like that. But I do hope you're finding value with the knowledge that I'm relaying and the workflows and the process and understanding the analysis and my system and why it is that we do things certain ways. Because a lot of people that are new to TA and looking at charts, a lot of this could look very confusing or foreign. So we try to make it as straightforward as possible and give the reasoning behind why we outline things a certain way. And yes, there's many different ways to analyze a chart to arrive at similar conclusions. What we try to do is have one of the cleanest approaches to doing that, which is just based off of levels, horizontal levels, market structure, bias, supply demand, and low time frame triggers. The less you have on a chart, the better. Like, this is a lot going on here, and normally I'd be getting rid of things on the way up. It just haven't gotten to that on this chart yet, but I mean, what an impressive chart. And I did want to claim the clout by leaving this up here to be like, well, guys, another AFM banger. I mean, how many on these live streams have we hit where I've given you Pico bottoms? If you're not by now, please, I do ask that you like, subscribe, and comment on this channel because it helps us grow. Go into the comment section, into the description. Go follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Follow the Daily Edge. Follow ChainEDGE. Consider subscribing to ChainEDGE. There's even a ref code for a 10% discount off your ChainEDGE subscription in the description. Help support what it is that we're doing here. Help spread the word that we're providing valuable information, because that helps me and gives me a positive feedback to keep doing these streams and to do all this, to provide all this analysis and my time, because I really enjoy doing that. And I love the community that we're building at AFM. It feels really great to see people stepping up and learning and asking questions and not being afraid to fail, but not being afraid to take the trades and going on to have success. So do please, if you feel so inclined and you enjoy what it is that I'm doing here, help us out by subscribing, following, all that good stuff. Enough of the shameless self-plugs, but it does help out. It does. So that was a bit of a tangent that I went on there regarding the process. Like, people keep asking me, what is the workflow? How to, like, give us more insight into the workflow. Well, this is it. Like, come join us in the AFM TG group. There's a group of us that I've brought. There's a group of guys that I brought on as admins into the channel called the War Room, which is an active trading floor. Sometimes busier than others, but which is only admins can post in there, but you can view and read everything that goes on in there. But there's also the main chat where you can ask questions. There's a Q&A channel as well. Ask questions, share your charts, ask for feedback. I'm in there all day long. People are curious about the workflow. What's the workflow? Like, we want more videos on the workflow. Can it really be as simple as just a few data points to get you on your way? Well, we're putting layers. And there really hasn't been as high of a signal that we've seen around, other than being deep in the trenches and being a trench warrior, trench warfare 24/7 and being deep in there. There really isn't as good of a system for getting those high probability setups as combining the portfolio summary balance holdings on sub 5-day tokens on ChainEDGE, this here. You can filter by day, 0 to 10 days, what I have, but you can narrow that down to 0 to 5. Gives you a pretty narrow selection of tokens. I mean, there's a lot on here right now because Solana's been very busy. And all this is showing you is the tokens in that age range that smart wallets are holding a balance in. And look, okay, we'll get the Gene on today because it's the current like darling right now, right? Like it's going crazy. So we'll get to that because it's it's blasted. The token launched yesterday. It's blasted to the top here. But using these port summary holdings combined with the portfolio alerts, so it's alerting you to when that happens, that the threshold of 100K has been hit of balance held, putting the discovery process into a simplified system where you're not having to look at a million different tokens. Once you get that alert, monitor the balance held. Now, the portfolio summary balances update a little bit slower than the token pages. So if you want the most up-to-date, click on one of the tokens. It'll open its page. Is my internet going slow? It'll open its page, and we can take a look and see the real-time balance held is 777K of that token. So yes, the portfolio summary page itself updates a little bit slower. As we can see, this balance is a little bit below what the token page said, but the token page is generally the most accurate up-to-date of that. So you get your portfolio alert. If you're coming over here and the portfolio alert's fired and you open up the token page, or you see here that it's below the 100K, it doesn't mean to disregard it. It just means it's maybe a little less of signal than if it's maintaining that over 100K threshold balance. But you get that, combine that with a token being over here on the attention dashboard, and then you throw in the final piece of the puzzle being solid analysis, and you're laying yourself up for success. It's not going to be 100% success. It's not going to be a 100% success rate. If that were the case, everyone would be doing it. But it takes work. It's not just here's a signal, press buy and go on with your life. It's not that. Nothing is. And if someone's selling you that, they're lying to you, and they're making money off of you, right? But what we do is we provide the tools so that you can make informed decisions. PowerNaps is saying, Fartcoin did the sweep and did the thing. It's no lunch season, sir. It's no sleep. It's no food. Any moment away from your computer is negative EV. Should have just left orders on 786 and confident on it. Well, sir, your narrative game has been on point. So stop fucking fading your instincts. All right, we're just approaching the 2-hour mark. We are going to wind it down soon. I'm going to get through maybe one or two more. If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to ask about them. And I hope that what I've been relaying here has been useful information to you, and why I keep stressing on certain factors and certain things to look out for and how to play these things. And by no means is it easy. I'm not at all suggesting that any of this is easy. What we've done is we've simplified the process. And I say the same thing, like I'm talking about the whole process, like between ChainEDGE, the different components, and what we're doing here. We try to simplify the process, and even just on the analysis of what I do on the charts, I always say this: it's simple, but not easy, because you have to know what you're looking for and have to have in the moment that's occurring, you had to step up to the plate and take the trade. You can do all the analysis in the world, but if you're not pulling the trigger, it does you no good. And you can see everything occurring on the chart, but if you don't know why the pieces come together and why they work together in the way they do, it's not going to do you any good, which is why it's a simple process, but it's not easy. It does take time. Alerts are flying in, and group chats look busy as fuck. I may have to stop doing these streams on Friday. Seems to be like Fridays lately are super busy. Is what it is, though, and I do really like and enjoy doing these streams. Okay, I've seen a few times in the... I see you there, Abdies. You're asking if I can do analysis on Kabosu, which was an alert from the other day. To be honest, I don't know why we're doing this Kabosu thing again. Like, ETH devs really need to step up and start being creative. I'm not going to go through the whole thing of looking at the alert and when it came in, but let's just take it from where it is now. Let's see. What can we do to analyze this? Well, I'm getting the sweep there. You can see that immediately. There's a key swing level. Let's just mark out a couple other key swing levels. There's another one there. This is your H4 range high. Here's an enter range swing low that's being swept. So maybe if that puts in a sweep with a close, you still got over 2 hours, so you don't know yet. It could end up down here, but if that closes as a sweep, there's a potential trigger right there. Let's go to H1, see where our... Okay, so here we go. H1 demand. H1 swing low. There's your H1 swing high. Here was your higher high break. There's your H1 bullish range. It looks as though, yeah, it closed below this interim swing level. So you're watching this. What would be ideal is the best signal for you would be for it to punch down into this demand. A punch down into here with a sweep at that level would be really great, but you can come all the way down to here before losing structure. So you're watching that. Again, that was an H4, right? This is an H4 swing level, inter-range swing level. So you really want to watch that on the H4 close, I think, because you can get an H1 closes that sweep and then it still comes back down on the H4. Like, you just have to think about how these candles are playing into the higher time frame candle. But look at what happened when we threw the fib up. Confluence around the golden pocket. So maybe it doesn't even come down and tag this demand. Maybe it gets this H4 sweep and it closes up here, and you've gotten the tag of the golden pocket. Market says close enough, so you have to be nimble. You have to look at these things, right? But there is your confluence of factors. We could also just say, okay, you got your chart. You want to keep it down and dirty simple. There you go. Now, when you do this, though, and you're looking at your chart and you're just saying, okay, I'm just going to blind bid off the fib. Like, I'm in no way knocking fibs because I use them frequently. Especially, well, I use them primarily as confluence, but there's plenty of people that trade just off of fibs. But if you're looking at this and you threw your fib up, what would have necessarily been your reason here, right? Is it just the fib? Are you looking here saying, well, it's just the fib that I'm playing off of? Well, who's to say that it's not going to come into there? But you start adding in layers, you do your primary analysis, and then throw your fib up and say, okay, I want to do business around here, and I'm just going to look for triggers. Because it doesn't have to tag demand. It could just be a sweep, especially this H4 level, right? Why do I put importance on the higher time frame there? Well, because it is an H4 level. Even though the H1 has that within its price action, what we're dealing with right here is this H4 level, this inter-range swing level. Because this H1 can close as a sweep, but you still come down further because you're watching the H4. But there's your setup for Kabosu. Abdis. Hopefully that helped you out. Djam Musashi. Good to see you, buddy. Thank you so much for showing up. Appreciate you being here. Apologies about that. I think I just kicked myself off stage by accident. I pressed the wrong button. I'm back. Okay. I was just checking out a DM from one of our admins. Mason, if you're watching the stream, is that something you wanted me to address now, or can I address that in private later? He's just asking about workflow and routine. Let's go back to sharing the screen. There we go. Apologies about that. I did not mean to kick myself off stage. Okay. I did. Sorry. Yeah. Hermit, I did cut out by accident, but I'm back. Okay. Let's do one more. Where are we at? We're at approaching that 2-hour mark, and I want to keep it to 2 hours. So let's do one more, and then we'll call it quits today. And what we're going to do, because it's been super bullish, is we're going to come here to GNON. Let's clear it off. See what we've got. Let's take a look and see what time the alert came in. The GNON alert came in at 8:11 yesterday. Early into this token, right? Came in here. I mean, talk about signal, right? They're not always going to play out like that, but talk about signal. Alert comes in. Okay, so what would we have been working with there? Was this swing high? Alert came in here into this candle. And you're saying to yourself, okay, what am I looking for here? How could I have gotten on board here? Because this candle closes a sweep. So you're just waiting. You're like, okay, if I get a close above, maybe I get signal, which you did. You got a close above. It didn't give you a proper tag into demand, but it came and did a higher high break retest. And then the following candle proceeded to give you a higher high and a tag into demand right here. Right there. And you closed above there. Another M15 higher high, tag into demand, boom, right? That's how you get on board these things quickly. And it's gone on to give a great trade. And it's never given it's given pullbacks, but it's never been too crazy, right? And now we've got more chart history, so we can bump up the time frame. I mean, look at this thing. Beautiful stair stepping, beautiful bullish stair stepping continuation. Look at that beautiful chart. All the GNON homies fits into that AI narrative. It's why being on top of the current market narrative is important. And there's some big brain stuff involved with this token. Like, there's a lot of reason to be bullish on this. So that's how you could have gotten on board this with the alert. And from when that alert was set, when you got it over here, you've never once broken structure on M15 until you got to close below here. And then you broke below for briefly, but then it quickly recaptured and gave a retest. These are the sort of things, so that having a solid understanding of what's going on in the market is important, as well being amongst a group of people that are focused on similar goals, and to have people researching some of this stuff and giving you those bullish indicators. Those bullish indicators. Can everyone let me know? Did we come back? Everyone can hear me now and see me? Well, not see me, but see the charts. So where do we do now? Where are we at now? Well, we're on H1. We're watching to see what happens here with this close. If it closes as a sweep, then we'll look lower. Something that I see that is a little bit unfortunate is how far down the H1 swing low is. It's all the way down here. Like the bottom of the H1 range is there. And as of right now, the top of the H1 range is there. If you get a close above, it'll change that. 8 minutes to go. Looking fairly likely it's going to get the close above, but we'll see. But if that's the case, then you have a new area of demand you'd be looking for here, because that would be your new swing low. Again, we need to wait for this candle to close before we can say that definitively, but this is where you might want to be looking for a higher low once you get the close here. If this closes as a sweep, then you might be thinking you could get something lower, but we don't know yet. The chart is very bullish. Okay. We've ran through a decent chunk of these. We didn't get to all of the coins, but like I said, the purpose of the stream was to drill down into the workflow related to these portfolio alerts and how to play them, and not to end up as exit liquidity on a token that pumped and dumped. How can you trade them effectively to maximize profitability and to minimize downside? We're not FOMO aping. We're not aping in the tops. Common theme is you're going to get some indication, whether that be a high time frame pullback or a bullish stair-stepping continuation with a higher high. Well, you look for the higher low, especially if tokens are moving fast. Like, two different strategies, but both give you a little bit of time to plan out what you would do, right? It's if this, then that. Because on the coins that didn't make the higher high but came down into those fibs, well, had they made a higher high, then your strategy would have been a little bit different. So that's one of the things. The other thing is utilizing the workflow of looking at the holdings data, the live holdings data, to see if they're still holding the coin or if they've been dumping, the smart money wallets. And then you're cross-referencing that to see if we have high attention on the dashboard, right? We're looking here. We're looking here. We're staying on top of all this data. It's a lot to look at, but it's also a lot less than looking at every single token that comes in front of it that hits the market. All right, well, I think we're going to wrap up. It's been a great stream. I hope that it's been knowledgeable. I hope that it's provided knowledge and insight for you guys into the workflow and how to play these portfolio alerts, and really drilling home not to blind ape into the tops on these things, to have a strategy depending on what the chart looks like. Develop a strategy. Remind yourself, write it down even beside you on your desk. Don't FOMO into tops. No FOMO. There's opportunity to get on board. Even if it's a super fucking bullish chart, that thing is taken off, it gives you entries if you know what you're looking for. And then on top of that, the different types of analysis we can run on these. If it's quick and dirty and you just want to get on with your day and you don't have a lot of time and you don't quite yet understand the dynamics of market structure and ranges and supply demand. And then you throw a fib up, and that can be your primary analysis. And then as you're doing your fibs over time and you start seeing, okay, there's this levels here, well, then you start marking those out. And then you start digging in to the primary analysis that we use. Or if you're more used to doing the primary analysis style that we do, you do those and then you throw up your fib and get your confluence. The more confluence you can get in the shortest period of time to have a reason to take a trade in that level, the more likely you're going to take that trade. You don't want to be overcomplicating. You don't want to be giving yourself too much information and giving yourself reasons to bury yourself out of it, right? So these are just things to add layers. And it can be done pretty quickly, as you've seen, especially if, like, just say you cut out all the noise of every other token and you just say, okay, when a portfolio summary alert comes in, I'm going to focus on that token in that moment in time. I'm going to pull the chart up. I'm going to mark out my levels. I'm going to decide on what type of approach is necessary. If this, then that. Do a little bit of research on the side into the token. Is it on narrative? Is it sounding bullish from people's comments, etc.? If you have a network of grinders in the trenches, look to them to see what they feel about it. If you know someone that's good at sleuthing on chain, sometimes it requires more effort than others, but you do that. You look at your attention and your holdings. All these things come together. It gives you time to plan out a trade rather than looking at every token. Because if you look at everything, you'll get nothing. But if you narrow down and concentrate your efforts, you'll be rewarded more than not. And knowing your invalidations, things like that. Want to remind you guys once again, this is the dailyedge.com website where our newsletter is hosted, but you can also subscribe and it'll go to your inbox. I need to redo this site. Needs to be a little bit more on brand and cleaned up a little bit prettier on the eyes. But don't forget to subscribe to the dailyedge.com/subscribe. This show is brought to you by the Daily Edge, so please go and sign up. It's a free daily newsletter that provides actionable insights, intel, and knowledge from the previous day in the market, written by the one and only on-chain wizard. It's a treasure trove of information and a wonderful companion to ChainEDGE and to AFM and everything that we're doing. It gives you insights about the market and distills the previous 24 hours down into about a 5-minute read. It's really worth your time, especially if you're short on time throughout the day. And also, we are brought to you by ChainEDGE, with links in the description below. There's also a ref code for anyone interested in signing up to the platform that gets you 10% off your lifetime fees. So please use that if you're looking to subscribe, because you can save some money. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Because without the support of our community, there is no point. We love doing what we're doing here, and we love growing our community. AFM is growing strong. Really beautiful to see all the guys showing up daily, putting in the work, looking to learn, asking questions, helping the community. And I do this out of the love, because I really enjoy doing what I do and helping to pay forward the knowledge and information that I've learned over the years in my analysis style and the system that we use. And it's, it evolves over time, the system. It's never set in stone. When I notice new things working out and some things not, I adapt, as one should. You adapt to information on the ground as it comes in. And with that, is there anything else? Oh, yes. If you're looking for a new trading venue, new terminal to trade on, consider using my 0xRapture link. It's not an official affiliation or a partnership, but it is a great platform, especially when you're trading these Solana coins, the New York tokens. It's a really great platform for getting in and out of trades quickly. Has a bunch of wonderful features. And if you use my ref link, you get 10% off of your fees as well. I get a little kickback. It's nothing much, but every little bit counts and shows appreciation for what we're doing here with the show. Once again, I am 0xRapture. This has been The Daily Edge presents Astrology for Men. And until next time, I'll leave you with some music as we normally do. Pop this one back up. Everyone, thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate you all.